You are listening to the Cocoa Blend Podcast. Our podcast aims to shatter the misconception that Black parents cannot co-parent without drama. A podcast for moms of faith who are tired of unnecessary conflicts, seeking a positive shift, and eager to embrace harmonious co-parenting in their blended family. In other words, moms who just want to co-parent without the drama. I am your host, Jamie Newton-Knight, motherhood mastery mentor and co-parenting coach. Join us as we navigate through insightful conversations and empowering stories, redefining the norms and celebrating the strength of united co-parenting in the Black community. So turn on that GPS and let's navigate the blend. Hello and welcome to the Cocoa Blend Podcast. We are back with another amazing guest, and this time it happens to be my bestie, my best friend Akeda. So I'm going to let Akeda introduce herself, and then we're going to get into this episode. So Akeda, hi, welcome.
Hello. Well, my name's Akeda Ellison. I am married now. 2 years going on 3. I have 3 biological children. One bonus that lives with us, and I have multiple bonuses that no longer live with me from previous relationship that I still keep in touch with. So have all types of relationship dynamics.
Yes, you do. Bonus upon bonus upon that. I think that needs to be a conversation within itself of like how sometimes when we move on from these relationships, there are still relationships that we keep, especially when you are a bonus parent and you build relationships with the children and then you guys are no longer together. Like, what is that dynamic supposed to look like? And what does it look like? Because in your situation, you still have really good relationships with the children. So
yeah, with Isaiah, I had him, he's been with us since he was 8 or 9. And, when me and his dad broke up, he stayed with me. He didn't go with his dad. So, then we kept him until past high school, actually. So he's doing well. He's now living on his own and supporting himself and stuff. But I even had his mama at one point. So.
Right. Isn't it good when you can have that kind of relationship with their mom too? Like, girl, listen, our son, okay, our child.
Yeah, they didn't end well, but there were good intentions when it started.
Right. Yes. It happens like that sometimes. So you describe your family unit as it's complicated, a work in progress. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I say it's complicated because it's not the norm. So my base unit here in Georgia, because as you know, originally from New York, so I don't have any, blood relatives here in Georgia. I've kind of had to build my own village. Which consists of, my main village consists of my middle child's father's family. So his grandparents, his aunt, uncles, cousins, everybody. I'm the family member. It's I'm introduced as a family member. It's not, that's, sometimes depending on who we're talking to, they might say my grandson's mom, but for the most part, that's my family, and anyone coming into the situation has to respect and honor, which was hard for my now husband to grasp when we first started dating. He was like, your ex is what? You want me to go where and do what? So it took a while for him to understand the dynamics, but for us, it's just about, I knew without my interaction, Chance wouldn't have the relationship he has with his grandparents or his aunt, because I think part of the things that we don't do is acknowledge who we were with. So knowing the person I was with, the relationship he had at that time was a lot because of the interaction I created for his family. So to not be with him anymore and then all of a sudden expect that for him to pick up that slack. And I think a lot of times we expect people to be what they're not. When we're not with them anymore. So you're with them and you're like, I'm gonna do everything. You're gonna make sure he goes visit his parents, you make sure he takes care of his kids, you make sure he attends family functions, and then you break up and now you expect him to take your kid to the family functions. You expect him to take care of your kid. You expect him to do all these things that you were doing for him when you were with him, knowing that that's not who that person is. So I made sure that I continued to do the things that I was doing with him, just excluding him. So obviously, we're not going to visit his parents together, but I'm going to make sure Chance visited his parents consistently. So in doing that, I built a relationship with them. Well, we already had the relationship, but I kept the relationship going. And I'm very careful. I don't speak about their son to them. Like, I don't call him names. I don't, they do. I listen, I agree, but it's not coming from me. Because at the end of the day, that's still their son. His aunt is his twin. That's still her twin brother, so there's no, at the end of the day, that's their family member, but he's not around and we are. So we make sure we keep that relationship. And it's, they've supported me. They support my kids. My oldest son, took him in and have never let him go. Kylie, they're pretty much the grandparents she knows. So that relationship has been amazing, and I would not give it up for any person who enters into my life. They either have to understand that it is what it is. But a lot of people side at me when you start explaining the dynamics. Everybody's like, looking at me like, what do you mean? And then once they see, they're like, oh, they're the best. And I'm like, yep. The best. So
to know them is to love them. They are an amazing family, and just like you said, whoever they encounter as your family, like when I met them as your friend, they were like, oh, your family, because that you guys are like sisters, so that's your family. And they literally treat you, whoever they feel is family, like family. It's not like, oh, she's just this other random person. Like, you are literally brought into the mold and no one feels any type of way or left out, which sometimes families can do that. So you talked about your relationship with your second to last, your middle baby, your middle baby's family. Do you have that same relationship with your younger child's family? Is that what the work in progress is?
Yeah, so that's a complete opposite scenario. That relationship is literally like, I'm married, but I'm still like baby mama is what I feel like.
Her over there.
Yeah. So I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's always been rocky. This relationship with my in-laws. It's just weird. Like,
it's a work in progress.
It is. It's just totally weird. So it is a work in progress, because they are actually starting to make steps to try and, mend fences and, create new stuff. So my mom just asked me yesterday, because right now we're trying to plan a trip. His mom wants us to go to a wedding, and it happens to be her birthday weekend. So she wants to go to Charleston. And my mom's like, why are you even going? I was like, I never want to be the person who blocks the growth. So I said, I'll be the bigger person. And as long as my parameters and boundaries are respected, meaning I'm not going to stay at anybody's house, right. I need my own space. I will attempt, and, we'll attend. But, some people would have just shut the door and said, enough is enough. And I've been there every other day for the past 10 years, but
you said every other day. And that's what I love about you and respect about you. And I'm not saying this because you're my bestie. I mean, I'm not. I really am not. Because if anyone knows you for real, then they know that you really do try to be objective, and you always try to put the kids before your own feelings. So even in situations where you could have and had every right to say, no, I'm not doing that because now I'm overextending myself, you didn't do that. You never have done that. You have never blocked your children from their parent ever, or their grandparents.
I have done it once. Okay. I did not
that I know of.
Yeah, I did not allow Chance to go to his dad's wedding. Only because it felt obligatory.
Rushed, perhaps?
Rushed. It was absolutely rushed.
It was.
First of all, we didn't meet his soon-to-be wife, they're divorced now, but we didn't meet his soon-to-be wife at that time until like 2 months before the wedding. And then it was like 2 weeks before the wedding. All of a sudden they were like, we need to take Chance to get him a suit. And I was like, he doesn't even know y'all. Like, what's gonna go on at the wedding? Like, who's gonna keep? Chance was only like 2 at the time, or maybe 3. So I was like, who's gonna keep him while the ceremony's going on? What's gonna happen after the ceremony? And nobody really had any questions or answers. So I was kind of like, I'm really not feeling comfortable with him going. Now, had his aunt or his grandparents reached out and say, hey, we want to take Chance with us, I would have allowed him to do that. But with his dad, I was like, no. And at the end of the day, I was glad I did it, because his oldest son went to the wedding and felt totally like not part of the family. So like his wife has 2 sons, same age as Isaiah. They were dressed in the same tuxedo as the dad. They put a random suit on Isaiah. His biological son was in a random suit, while the 2 sons, his 2 new bonus sons, were dressed identical to him. I would have blown a complete, utter gasket after the fact had that been Chance. And he wasn't even old enough to understand. We're talking about 15, 16-year-olds at the time. Right. So clearly you can say like, well, how come I'm not dressed like my own dad?
No,
guys are dressed like my own dad. So it was that, like, I got that type of vibe prior to, and I was just like, no. But other than that, no, I've never denied or
right. And but still it goes back to, and I want to say this, preface it by saying a lot of people have a very negative connotation of baby mamas or biological mothers, and they always feel like we will use our children as pawns, or they'll say that we do things selfishly for our own needs, our own concerns, our own feelings. And so when you say that, even in what you just said, I'm sure there will be someone that can take that and flip it and say, oh, well, he still should have been able to take him. But the reality is, you're sending your child with a stranger, not one stranger, unfortunately, but 2, one who's not involved and just really wants to show, oh, look, I have my child, right? Mm-hmm. And the other who doesn't know my child at all. Right. So I'm gonna send my child with perfect strangers to a wedding just so that somebody can say, oh, he had his son there.
Right.
No. But if his grandparents or his aunt said, we will be there, we will watch him, send him with us, then you would have done it. So it's not showing that you're just like, oh, I was so mad because he was getting married and I'm not healed. That's not what that was. It was safety. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right, people. We don't all act crazy because we want him back so bad. We already know what we had. Believe me.
Did not want him back.
Right. We don't want him back. We know what we had. We know what we had. We're good to go. But I also like that you spoke about the fact that what I thought was really important about what you said was that you know the person that you were with. And therefore you knew that if you were not being involved and you were not being active while we were together with your own children, then why, in your own family, why would I expect now that you're going to come on the weekends and pick up the kids and take them to see grandma? Right.
And that was what he was saying. I'm going to, I don't care about child support. I'm going to pick up my kid. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, then happened. So it was just like, can I really be mad? Right. I made him set up a schedule to pick up his children. I made him figure out a fair amount of money to give his son's mom on a regular basis. So she's not calling, talking about her lights getting cut off or her water bills getting cut off. No, you give her a certain amount of money and she needs to be able to, do what she needs to do for her household, but you need to contribute at the same time. So there was no expectation otherwise, which is why I went to the child support office. I'm not even about to argue with you.
Right.
None of this.
I already know you.
You
There's
know,
no point in fighting.
I didn't press the every other weekend, pick up your kid. If he called and said, hey, can I have him? You can have him. If you don't call. So,
Right.
you know, we're at the point now, it's been over a year since he's spoken to him. And I don't call. I don't say, where you at? What you doing? Why you in college? He has his own cell phone. You can communicate with him at any point when he chooses or not chooses. Although I feel like at this point, my son probably wouldn't answer.
Right.
But, you know, it's what it is. I've never forced the issue of anything for that matter. Like, I don't even call and ask where your child support at. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. And whenever they get a payment, they get a payment.
Right. And if they don't, I'm surviving without it anyway. So
yeah, so you know, and I think it actually catapults his grandparents and his aunt to do more, because they feel like, you know, they know his dad's not doing anything. So, you know, even though they already have, you know, so much love for him, like they pour more into him knowing that his dad's not around, or, you know, they take extra care to just like do random things. Like, I literally don't have to say, can you help me? Like,
right.
They say, okay, football season's coming up, how much does it cost? And then they'll be like, I can contribute this, you know. And they do it for Kylie too. They don't just do it for Chance. You know, what's going on with, you know, Kylie got such and such coming on, I can help you do this, which is total opposite from her biological grandparents who,
right.
You know, I have no idea if they even know what goes on, you know, as far as what she does or when she does it. I'm sure her dad shares, but I don't know what those conversations are like.
That's why I say go back to them. It's a beautiful blessing, but also that's why it is important, mothers, that regardless of what dad is doing, if you have had a relationship with the children's grandparents before, don't just stop just because. Just like she said, you know who you were dating. You know that he wasn't as involved and wasn't active taking the kids to see his parents then. So that's something you were doing. Continue to do it. The reason why I don't think that of course, I'm sure he has times and spaces where he's thinking about his father, he misses him and stuff like that. But the fact that he has the connection to his grandparents and his aunt and his other relatives on his father's side still allows him to have that connection. So it's not like a child who, you know, doesn't get to see their dad, but also doesn't have a relationship with their other side of the family. It's like almost a whole side that you're losing out on.
Yeah, and he doesn't miss that, you know, I don't know a whole side of my family. And then he also gets to see that not only is my dad not present in my life, my dad is not present in my grandparents' life. He's not present in anybody. So it's not isolated to him.
Right.
Like, I feel like it alleviates the what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because he can see that nobody has any interaction. So when he was younger, you know, being at his grandfather's house, he might get to see his dad by accident. But now his dad's moved to a different state. So literally, you know, nobody really has any interaction with him. Right. So I do feel like it's a little less isolating when they can go to the other parents' family. Right. Because then it's just like, okay, my dad's not here, but I still have two sides of a family. So like, you know, Chance would be like, oh, Kylie's dad's coming to get her. But nobody was coming to get him. So we would make sure, you know, I'd make sure he'd go spend some time over with his grandparents. And now that he's older, they're doing even more. Like, he's gone on a cruise. He just came back from a cruise with just him and his grandfather by themselves. And that's not something he's done with any other grandchildren, but you know, that's their, you know, he has that bond. He was able to take Chance, and Chance enjoyed being with him. I just had a situation where, you know, I heard something about Chance and a little girl he was dating, and I was like, oh. And he doesn't yet have a relationship with my husband where he can have those kind of conversations. And I had to go, Grandpa, I need you to have a grandpa conversation with Chance. So wasn't he's in trouble, but you know, just someone he respects, so he can hear the information that I needed him to hear. Because if I would have said it, it would have been like, you know, whatever. Or if Jeffrey would have said it, it would have been like in one ear and out the other. But if Grandpa says it, it'll stick a little bit better. Not necessarily 100%, because, you know, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. But, you know, just having that extra person, because my dad's not here, so he's not able to, you know, take on that type of conversation. My son, my oldest, is, you know, on the other side of the country. So their relationship is not as it used to be, because he doesn't see him that often and they don't talk on the phone that often, that type of thing. So somebody who's present, who can make a difference, who can, you know, kick him in the pants when he need to be kicked in the pants, or, you know, not kick him in the pants when he don't need to be, you know, spoil him a little bit. Right. They spoil him a lot, but spoil you know, just that extra set. And that extra set of everything is just, it is everything, because my kids do everything. They're everywhere.
Yes, I agree. Like, I think that, again, I still think that that's so good that he has that relationship. And just like you said, when there's those moments when it's like, I need a man to have this conversation with him, and he's not yet in the space where he either trusts your husband or feel comfortable with having that without maybe the judgment, or the, like, it's going to be very parental, right? Mm-hmm. Where he can just kind of say, okay, like, this is what's going on. Yeah. And Grandpa's going to make it serious, but Grandpa's going to make it fun too. Yeah. Because he's going to tell him the real, but he's going to do it in a way that doesn't make him feel embarrassed.
Yeah. And he, you know, all of my kids are different. Like, my oldest told me everything. I would have been able to have that conversation with my oldest son.
We know.
And, you know, I've had conversations I didn't want to have with my oldest son. To this day, he still tells me stuff I really don't want to know. But chances not. He's not very, you're either in his circle or out his circle. And even in his circle, he's only sharing but so much. Like, right. Full teeth to get information out of him. So
it's I think it's the times too. Like, with our older ones, I feel like they definitely spend a lot of time with us, but definitely in a way where Chance spent a lot of time with you too, but I think it's the times. I think now they have more access to a lot more things, whereas when the boys were bigger, when our big men were younger, they had to ask questions, or just like you said, they were more inclined to just come and say, "Hey, look at this. What's going on here?"
Yeah, because they had the internet, but they didn't have the smartphones. They didn't have, you know, they didn't have the internet as easily accessible as our youngest do.
Yeah, now they can Google anything.
Yeah, we were still AOL, the little thing.
Exactly.
You know, they were just getting handheld video
devices. Yep.
So it is totally different raising the ones that we have now. Oh, child, what were we thinking?
Right? Starting all over again when you got grown people. Are you ready to retreat? Then get those passports ready. If you're a mom who's just completely overwhelmed from wearing all the hats, doing all the things, and being everything to everyone, then this is the retreat for you. Now's the time to release the supermom syndrome and practice some guiltless self-care. Join us Mother's Day weekend, May 10th through the 13th, for the Motherhood Mastery Rest Retreat. Go to thecocoblend.com/momsretreat for more details. But yeah, that's definitely true. I'm happy that he has that. I'm glad you have that extra set of family. And I hope that there's a space and a time when your husband is able to get comfortable with them, because they are a loving group of people who are not like, they ain't gonna pick no sides, you know, they're gonna tell right.
He's starting to see that now. Yeah. So, you know, he gets it now. Like, our next vacation, Grandpa's coming. Yeah. You know, my mom's coming, and then, you know, we'll be there. So I think he sees it now. I just think, especially for him, you know, he's Southern, you know, where, you know, blended families ain't something you really deal with to begin with. So when you take a out of the norm blended family, you really just like,
right.
What are you talking about? You know,
blended families were dealt with differently. It's not
Yes.
that they didn't happen. No one talked about them. You just knew that there were all these extra relatives, but you didn't know how y'all were related.
Yes.
Y'all just kind of all was at the same summer food program, and like, oh, I don't know who that is. And yeah. And then you find out years later, oh, that was grandpa's other daughter's children. Oh, so that's my cousin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's how it works down south.
And they definitely, that's exactly how it was either that, or you know, you have the siblings that grow up in the household, but one's really not a sibling. You got like mom and daughter, right, or mom and son.
Right. She's actually auntie is actually your mom, but no one said it.
That's exactly how he knew of, you know, outside children, that type of situation. So, you know, he didn't really have any experience in blended families the way we do.
Right.
And then when you add on the extra of the in-laws but not in-laws,
the ex's family that just won't go away. They're
right. Then it was just
wait,
like,
but y'all not together no more, right? No,
yeah. And he tells this story all the time. The first time he went over to the Powers house, they still had our engagement picture on their mantle at the on the fireplace or whatever. Totally innocent, wasn't done on purpose. I'm pretty sure if I would have saw it prior to, I would have been like, I'm gonna need y'all to take that picture down, or paid any attention to it, because I'm pretty sure I saw it. So that was his first impression. So in his head, he was like, well, they want them to get back together.
Right.
You know, so it caused a shadow of doubt over him. But, you know, they've even embraced his son now. So now he's kind of like, okay.
They sure have. When they post pictures online, they say my grandkids. They don't say my grandson and my other grandkids. No, they say my grandchildren, all of them together. Like there's no separation. And to me, it takes a lot to be able to do that, because in that position as the grandparent, they don't know what could happen, right? They don't know if the person's going to be like, okay, I don't want my kids calling you whatever, and down the line. But they like, listen, y'all all here now, y'all coming to eat on Sunday. We going to the picnic together. I'm gonna have a barbecue, everybody's welcome. Like, that's how they are now. And I think that is great to have. And I think because we have that dynamic in our families, because I have that same relationship with my ex's family. I find it difficult when I hear people say she doesn't need to show up at no events, you know, or no family functions, or we don't need to do a barbecue together, or we don't have to have like Thanksgiving. And I'm like, why would you not want to? If you can, why would you not want to? And that doesn't mean that you all have to be like best friends. It just means you can be in the same room and y'all can be okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the ex wants to be back with the baby daddy. Get it out your head. That's not who it's about. Believe me, it's not.
It's hard on the kids. Like, I remember,
right.
And you know, my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family got along growing up. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. However, you know, there were still separate holiday functions, separate Thanksgiving, separate Christmas. And I'd find myself getting on the train to get to one place and then having to go all the way to the other side of the city to get to the other place. And if one felt like I spent too much time over here, they're like, you always over there and you're always doing this. And I was like, so when it was time for me to have I didn't want my kids to feel like they had to choose between the mom's side or the dad's side. Now, of course, birthdays and stuff, everybody came together. I didn't have to, you know, share my birthday or anything like that. That wasn't a problem, but it was still just like you feel torn between the two sides of the family, and you shouldn't have to. Like, why can't I even went on vacation. Why can't I go on vacation with my ex? We ain't sharing a room, we're not doing any of that, but why should my son have to choose which parent he gets to experience the beach for the first time, or, you know, something like that? Like, we're adults, we created this situation, so I feel like, you know, sometimes you just suck it up. Like, we went on vacation with him and his new wife. She was more uncomfortable than I was, because, you know, obviously I still had, you know, a relationship with everybody, and she was just meeting everybody. So it was more uncomfortable for her, but like, we made it work. Why should, you know, Chance not be able to experience fishing for the first time with both his parents? And then it was a scenario where, you know, that would mean if I didn't go, then my other children wouldn't be able to go. Or, you know, that it would have created a bigger situation. So it's just like, if both adults are
Can
adults
be adults
about the situation, because you got to think about it both ways from the guy's perspective. So us as women, when we break up, we forget who the person was, and so do men. Men forget that you're the person who's very family oriented, and all you care about is making sure the kids is good. All of a sudden, when you break up, then you just want their money.
Right. Oh yeah, you a gold digger then.
Vindictive, you're this, you're that, and it was like
bitter is my favorite.
I wasn't this when I was babysitting your kids, or, you know, taking care of your kids when we were together.
Or creating a budget so you can pay for your kids and also live still. Okay, remember that?
So, you know, everybody need to do better on both sides. Like, men have to remember that at one point you loved this person so much and it didn't work. That's life. It didn't work. However, you now have a kid to raise, and that's who it should be about. Does this benefit my kid? And if it don't benefit your kid, don't do it. But if at the end of the day, you sucking up 24 hours or 48 hours or 2 hours to be in the same space as the other person or the other person's family, you should be able to do that.
Right. And in addition to that, you said the two parents should remember exactly who the other is, but also I think it's a matter of honesty too, and also like the male or the person who has the partner being honest with the new partner about what the relationship is, because it is oftentimes that I will see that the new person doesn't know what the dynamic is, and they get upset about what the dynamic is when it's done. It's almost as if you're trying to push this new thing on them. And I'm like, no. So before you got here, this is how it was, right? And so you may not feel comfortable, but if this is not about you, right? Because that's not who it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about you or me or him. It's supposed to be about our child. Then we're going to continue to do what's comfortable and best for them.
Yeah.
And it should have nothing to do with us. But sometimes because of the lies that these people tell the other partner, because of the misconception that people have coming in, like, oh, she just wants him back. That's why he can only watch the child at her house. But they don't know the backstory of, no, he can only watch the child here because every time the child goes with him, there's an accident, or several things have taken place as to why now the visitation is only at that person's house. Like, they don't know the backstory. They're being told half truths or no truths at all. And so they have this perception about the mom, like she's bitter, she can't move on, she wants him back. And I feel like that's why it's important for people, especially when you know that this is who you're going to be with, you know that this is who you want to be with, you're going to have in your child's life, that is important to introduce that person to your ex, because y'all are going to have to deal with each other in some kind of way. Yeah. You may not like it. Most women, I'm not sure why. Maybe you could speak to this because you are a bonus mom now, but I don't know why it is that many times bonus moms, or not even girlfriends, because you ain't the bonus mom yet, the girlfriends don't want to meet the ex when they're in that child's life. It's like, you're in my kid's life and you don't want to have a conversation so we can create boundaries for each other. Like, if you feel like, I don't want you calling here after X amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's your boundary. And I can say to you, and these are my boundaries in regards to my children. Any type of discipline is going to stick with dad and child, or we can discuss what discipline looks like before you do it with my child.
I think there's a level of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, for me, if I were to ever be single again, like, I had rules. Like, I'm not dating anybody with kids under 2. Reason why I'm not dating anybody with kids under 2 is because I feel like they haven't really solidified what their relationship with the co-parent looks like.
Right.
Under 2. Like, you're still trying to figure it out. Are you completely over with? You know, what's your visitation look like? You know, all the pettiness, or, you know, all of that stuff that happens, because at that point you're still dealing with the breakup.
Right.
not necessarily moved on to the point where we're just co-parenting. You're still dealing with the resentment, the anger, the pettiness, because we can be petty.
We can
definitely be petty. So I feel like, once you get past that point, there's still a level of insecurity for the girlfriend, because you don't necessarily know what you're coming into, because you only know one person's side of the story.
So why believe that person's side of the story tooth to nail? Like,
right.
He said that he is sleeping on the couch and they not together, and and it's just me and him, and she's bitter and she wants him back.
Yeah. So you have
all
these stories you've heard about this person, because obviously you're going to tell a story, you're going to shed the best light on you. You're not going to be like, I was an idiot, I was such and such, I was immature.
Right.
You're not really going to do that. So you're going to shed and give this whole persona. So you already have your wall up, and then it's kind of like you're dealing with somebody else's kid. You don't know what their expectations are. You don't know what their limits are going to be. So you're timid. So I think it's important for biological moms to not necessarily initiate the contact, because obviously you want to respect the relationship of that person and their partner. But I think it's important for bio moms, when they do come into face to face, so you are able to speak to that person, to be open when you meet that person. Let them know, like, I don't know what he told you, I don't care. It doesn't matter what he told you. This is who I am, what I'm about. As long as we have respect and boundaries,
my
kids are good, we're good. Like, y'all can do whatever it is y'all need to do.
Right.
That's y'all business. You don't have to share it. But let's make this comfortable situation for the kids. My kid is coming into your home, if they're together, or he's spending time with you when y'all are there. Let's make it a comfortable situation, so when he comes home, he's good, and I don't have to call nobody like, why my kid clothes is dirty, or why such and such and such, whatever the situation. I don't want to have to do any of that.
Right.
But I also think it's important for girlfriends to understand, like, when you date somebody with kids, if you're not ready to really be mature, then don't date nobody with kids. Like, you have an option, choose the other option, because you really have to be mature in order to deal with kids and kids' moms, because some kids' moms aren't ready to be
right. Some of them are going to be coming in hot.
Right. So,
with the petty.
Yeah, so you got to be prepared for either one. And if you're not mentally mature enough to handle the situation, you shouldn't, because it's the kids who suffer at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you don't want, just like you said about having them choose, like, and I think it was good that you came from that perspective, because you were a child who experienced it. And so because you experienced it as a child yourself, being torn between two parents, you didn't want your kids to feel that way. And because of that, you made a atmosphere where your kids didn't have to choose. Like, let's be grown. I don't want to be on this vacation with this dude who I was about to marry, who is now married to someone else, right? Because that could have been a nasty situation.
Yeah.
But you put your pride aside and said, you know what? Let's just go on this vacation, because this is his first of everything, and I want him to be able to experience it with his father. Now,
and it wasn't comfortable at all.
Right.
It wasn't comfortable for me. It wasn't comfortable for her. It wasn't comfortable for the grandparents. It wasn't comfortable for the auntie. Everybody was like on pins and needles, to the point where we had a karaoke night, and we even thought about the songs we were singing in this karaoke night, to make sure that there wasn't like any subliminal messages being sent just through the song. So that's how much thought we put into.
We're not gonna do Crush on You, Wanna Rumble with the Beat, huh?
Right.
We're not gonna do that one, because we don't want to fight.
It's definitely not comfortable. It's not easy, but like, when you look back on the pictures and the videos, Chance there's a video of him fishing on the pier with his grandpa, and he caught a fish. Like, those are the type of memories that that made it all worth it. It all worth it. Yeah. So it's just like, you got to think about that type of stuff. So whenever his grandpa's gone, he'll have that video of him on a pier fishing with his grandpa, and he doesn't remember it to think back and be like, I did it. But we have the video, we have the
Right.
pictures of him doing that. You know, he doesn't remember a lot of stuff from it, but it was also one of those things where, you know how you're the mom, so you're always taking the pictures and you're never in them. You know,
Right.
his first trip to aquarium, I have all these pictures of him and his dad. I was there. I planned it. I paid for it. I picked up his dad to bring him there, and I have
I'm the
not
one
one
behind
picture
the camera.
to prove that I was there. So it's just like, you know, it's those type of sacrifices that, you know, even though they don't have a good relationship right now, he can still look back. I can give him that and say, you know, he was here.
Right.
You know, he wasn't always not there. And I feel like that's important too, for the kids. So
yeah, it is. It really is. The kids, just like you said, the kids will have those memories. And I think that the fact that he can have that memory of all of you being in the same space, and like, it wasn't awkward for me. I had a good time. I was fishing. I was, you know, I had access to both my parents, and it does take a level of maturity, just like you said, of the person coming in. But I also think it takes an extremely serious conversation between the two parents to say, this is the relationship that we want to foster for our children moving forward. We don't like each other. Got it, right? We don't have to. But let's continue to try to make it a comfortable situation for our kid, regardless of how you feel about me, regardless of how I feel about you. Any of the adult conversations that need to be had, we'll have it. We'll make sure it's not around the kid. But when either of us have somebody new coming in, this is the dynamic. This is what it is. I feel like sometimes people miss the mark on sharing with the new partner, like, this is how it is. This is how our relationship has been.
Yeah.
And then when that new person comes in with their own idea of, well, I have a kid too, and my son's father has to meet me at the McDonald's. Like, yeah, but we don't do that. Right. Yeah. And that can be hard for somebody. Yeah. But that's why you got.
I think that's important too. Give them a heads up. Like, you know, Chip's dad uses the word mommy a lot. You know, like, hey, mommy, can you do such and such and such and such? So, you know, that was one of the things I warned my husband. Like, it's not a personal, you know, pet name. He literally says that to every female he speaks to. But if you don't know him, and the first time you meet him, he's walking around, hey, mommy, can you go get Chance and such and such? That would, like, you know, have somebody on edge. And it still bothered him. It wasn't like it was cool after I warned him about it. But I gave him that heads up on his personality, just so he wasn't totally, like, you know, guys and egos. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, for the most part, I can ease it as much as I can. But at the same time, you know, if you're going to be with me, you want to figure out a way to deal with him.
Kids aren't stupid. Foster your own relationship with them that's genuine and authentic. And I guarantee you, you're not going to have to feel that level of, like, discomfort, because you got your own thing, whatever the own thing is, like, whatever y'all call each other, whatever nicknames you got, it's going to be cool because y'all have built your own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, people, grown-ups.
Yes, grown-ups.
Go figure. So let's move on. You said that during the process, you struggled with acknowledgement, and the way that you got through it was by letting go of the resentment and the anger. Talk a little bit about that too. So
the other thing I feel like we as bio moms don't want to acknowledge or accept is that,
girl, you here to preach today?
Are you never going to get 50-50?
Who sent you? Okay, go ahead.
You're never going to get 50-50. It's never going to be a 50-50 relationship. You're not going to get 50-50 of the finances. You're not going to get 50-50 of your time. You're not going to get 50-50 of the work. And I feel like we have this expectation, and it's unrealistic. You're just not. I'm married, and I don't get 50-50 of everything. I feel like
that's right.
50-50 for in a marriage, but I feel like when we break up and now we got a co-parent, it's like, but I do more. I do this. I have them this. I spend this, and it's just, you just have to come to the realization that it is what it is. Once you become a single parent, then you're going to do majority of the work. You're going to spend majority of your money, and you have to accept and acknowledge that that's just what it is, and not be resentful to the other parent for their, what you feel is their lack of, you know, because sometimes they could absolutely be doing the best that they can with what they have. And you have to be able to accept that, because if you were in a situation where you couldn't, you wouldn't want your children to be like, well, mom, you are less than a mom because I wanted $75 Nikes and all you could buy me was $50 New Balances.
Right.
But, you know, we have that expectation for our partners that we have to co-parent with when we're saying, I need you to give me this, or I need this. And they're saying, well, I can only give you this. This is all I have. This is all the time I have. This is all the money I have. And we're saying, no, that's not acceptable. But if the table was turned,
wow,
would we be willing to accept that same shame being given on us? So
that's my best friend, y'all. That's what she's dropping gems. That's my best friend.
That took a minute for me because, you know, I did have that expectation. You know, I have 3 different kids. They all have 3 different dads. I have 3 different scenarios with all of them. So my oldest was the, you know, he had more money. So whenever my son wanted money or he wanted something, no problem. You can have it. You know, we didn't have to go to child support court. We could have a conversation.
Because he knew who he had before. That's why. And he knew that you weren't a gold digger and you weren't about money. And so I appreciated, that's the Taurus in him. I appreciated that he always continued to have that level, right?
Yeah. So, you know, we were able to have conversations when child support needed to be increased for whatever reason. Or, you know, those were easy conversations. But once I left New York, the conversations that were hard were the face-to-face conversations, the, you know, the time spent conversations that, you know, while I was there, he took them every single weekend, you know, every long break. We switched in the summer, no complaints. Matter of fact, I would have to fight him to bring him to a function on a weekend.
Wasn't it beautiful?
That was his time.
Beautiful, but kind of not.
Yeah, he didn't want to share. But then when we got down here, it was a little bit more hands off. And at first I took all of the responsibility because I said I moved. It was my decision to leave the state. So, you know, I caused this distance. But after a while, and then as he got older and we started learning about other things he was doing, other places he was traveling, but he would never travel here. He came once to his 5th grade graduation, and my son played football, baseball, all that stuff. He never came to visit, but I even found out he was here in Atlanta quite a few times and didn't visit. But, you know, he always paid his child support. Not a problem. On time. If he wasn't on time, there was a communication that said, hey, I'm not gonna be able to pay here, I'm gonna pay here. So then when I got to my second kid, it was completely different. From the beginning, it was completely different, you know, and this was someone I was about to marry, you know, so the expectation wasn't great because I already knew he had children he had no relationship with. And then there was the ones that I helped him maintain a relationship with. So it wasn't like I was expecting him to be like this awesome dad. But there was also a little bit of hope where it's like, okay, this is your last kid. This is your last opportunity to get it right. And he just fumbled the ball on that one. So it's like, okay.
You can tell you a football mom. Go ahead.
So then when it got to my last kid, you know, I met someone who was also a single parent. So I'm like, cool, he gets it. But he didn't. He didn't really get it. You know, he didn't understand truly what single parenthood was because of his village.
Right, because he had a village.
Was set up, you know, his village was set up as like takeover. And I think it goes back in talking about it earlier when we were talking about the way Southern people handle blended families. I feel like that dynamic was there, even though they knew, like, you know, obviously he knew his son knew that was my dad, but the grandparents were the authoritative, they were the head. So that dynamic made it so he didn't really understand the function of a single parent as much as I thought he did. So that caused a whole bunch of other stuff, but
yeah, I understand that too, especially in terms of like, just like you said, his dynamic with his son, because I had that dynamic with my father once my father and mother separated and my father moved to South Carolina, I was still very young. And he was living with his mother. But whenever I would go over to visit, I would say, oh, I'm going to my dad's house. But my grandmother would make it very known that's her house. And I had to adhere to her rules, not his rules. So if he said I could walk to the store, which was literally a New York block, maybe, from the house, and she said no, the answer was no. So my dad, for me, when I looked at him, he was definitely still my dad, but not the authoritative figure. And more so like not really a brother, but like, you gotta adhere to the rules I gotta adhere to. So right. Yeah. She make the rules here. You don't make no rules. You can't play music if she say no music. You can't, don't come back in my house after a certain time. So there were rules for him as a grown man with children, as there were for me, a 8-year-old kid, right? So
yeah. And that level of responsibility you feel as a single mom, the weight of feeding your kid, clothing your kid, keeping a roof over your kid, what school does my kid go to? How does my kid get to school? Who's going to watch my kid when I get out of school, out of work? You got the school ends at 3, I don't get off to 5. Where do I send my kid? Like those type of stresses that we had to, figure out. He didn't get that. And I didn't realize he didn't get that until, way later on. And it started coming into little pieces. Like,
like when you met his representative. Like, hello, yes, single dad.
Yeah.
I met a single dad.
So even the little things, like, we used to go out Thursday through the whole weekend, but we had to make sure we had a babysitter.
That's right. And we had to get back before a certain time to take care of our own kids. Like, we couldn't just stay out all night. We had to. The kids got to be at
in
school.
The house, right?
Right.
They were home, but that wasn't an automatic. Yes, I'll watch your kid. You still had to get permission. He didn't have that. It was kind of like, I'm out. He had that automatic. So sometimes he's like, you were jealous. I wasn't jealous. It's just a different scenario. So
it's different than single parenting.
Yes,
because it's not technically. Yeah, because you could literally go and come as you please. You plan as a single individual, not even as an individual with a kid. It's different if you were like, I'm going away for the weekend and it's you and your kid going away for the weekend because you know that you didn't ask for a babysitter, versus saying, I'm going away for the weekend. I had to ask my mom to watch the kids. Yeah, that's different.
The crazy thing is, after I had Kylie, he invited me to homecoming, right? So he invites me to homecoming. He still lived in Fort Valley. So Fort Valley's 2 hours away. So he lived in Fort Valley with Jordan. I'm up here with Kylie. And he's like, yeah, come to homecoming for the weekend. And I'm talking to him and I'm like, you do realize that we both have a kid up here in Atlanta, but you only secured babysitting for the one down there. How am I supposed to go away for the weekend? And I have not just Kylie, but I had Chance and Trayvon at the same time. And I was just like, you just don't get it. Like,
right.
You were just like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, sir,
ask somebody to watch them. Like, ask who. That's not how it works.
So I told him, I was like, you just asked me so you could say you invited me and I told you no.
Well, remember that time I did invite you, but you couldn't go.
Yeah. So, it was just that. And it's still a work in progress to get him to see certain things where it's like you have to understand the level of responsibility that comes. Like, you can't just, everything's a responsibility. How much does milk cost? Swiping the card, not knowing how much is actually in there. So it's a difference. And it was difficult going from being, as we broke up multiple times, being baby mama and co-parenting to now married. So that's hard because he's walking into a scenario where I've already been single mom for 3, almost 4 years with his kid, and now we're living in the same house, and now you got to try and blend what's going on. And there was resentment there because it was like, I've been doing this by myself for all this time. You can't come in here and change nothing. This is how this is how it is. But so that's the work in progress that I'm dealing with now, going from, and it's still a work in progress. We've some years in and it's still a struggle to take that mindset of it's just me to it's both of us, especially when you have someone who doesn't know how
right
to be both of us still, only because he doesn't know how to be just him either. So he went from being in the house with his parents to now being in the house
right
with, you know, us. So he doesn't get something. So it's definitely that's the work in progress. Still working through some of those things where you get glimpses of who he used to be, and it's just like
right. We could have a whole conversation on that. I think that there are many bio moms who went from being single moms to being a married mom, and the transition between what that's like of like that going from that mindset of singlehood to now being in a marriage with someone who's actually a partner. Like it can be a challenge, because I'm at the beginning, I'm not waiting for nobody to fix the desk. Like if the desk was broke, I was doing it for all this time, I'm gonna fix the desk. Whereas my husband's like, why you put the desk together? Like, I'm here. So he allowed me to step back more and say, I got a new desk, can you put it together? And put my hands up and let him put it together. Now, I will say this still, I struggle if you don't do it in my time frame. I got a time frame. I want my desk together by 8 p.m. If you don't get my desk together by 8 p.m., I'm going to quit my desk. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So there's still that part, but I think we could have a whole conversation with a bunch of moms who went from single to married and what that transition was like. I'm sure we get a bunch of different answers, but also sometimes when you're in a relationship with a man who, you said that it's a struggle still because he's still finding his own identity within the relationship and marriage, being married. But there are men who come in already and make you feel secure. And so sometimes, as they say now, I'm settling in my softness, right? Or like, oh, this is my soft girl life era or whatever. Like, I think more women are able to let it go and relinquish that when there's that level of safety and security. Like if you feel safe.
I don't necessarily feel, I'm a type, I've learned that I'm a type A personality.
You're a what?
Type A personality.
Yes.
Yes. So I do find it very hard to get to that soft place. I want to be there. When you think about being married, that was like the best thing. It was like,
can be. I do.
I just want to, I don't have to think about like it, and it be like, when I do relinquish it, it's out of frustration.
Right.
Like it'll be like, so what's for dinner? I don't know. I don't want to think about dinner. My brain cut off at 5 o'clock. You figure it out. That's me relinquishing.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. I think that if you have someone, because he's still trying to figure it out, if you went in with someone who was already there and they're like the person who's like, I want my family to feel secure. So financially, you good. You don't got to worry about if the bills are going to be paid and on time and if y'all going to have money, and you don't have to worry about whether the kids are going to get picked up because y'all got a schedule and he sticks to the schedule. You're not going to have to worry about like the dishes and the garbage because y'all got y'all thing in sync. It's like I do the food and you do the garbage, and I'm doing the laundry and you do the vacuuming. Y'all got it, and it's in sync. When you have that level of security as a woman, you are able to relinquish it more. You're able to feel more secure in like your womanhood. Like, okay, well, I don't gotta do that. Like I know women who are like, my husband never lets me go out without a full tank of gas. Like he always makes sure that I have gas in my car. I'm like, yes, husband. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Cocoa Blend podcast. See you next time.